Hi, everybody. This is Ryan Bush again with Pacific Reiki. In our modern, challenging world, we can all be faced with a lot of stress, but sometimes it gets to be such an enormous amount of stress that it can be overwhelming and can seriously interfere with our quality of life and how much we're able to get done. We all may have ways that we usually try to deal with stress. For example, we might try to remind ourselves not to sweat the small stuff or try to have a bigger perspective about things. Or we might try to distract ourselves with things like watching television or uh, scrolling through social media or listening to music, whatever we might commonly think of as ways to distract ourselves. But these things are often not as effective as we might want them to be uh, because sooner or later our thoughts and emotions will start spinning on and we are no better off than when we try to do something about the stress. So in this video, I wanted to talk about some ways that can be more effective at working with stress. Of course, there are some tools like meditation or Reiki or finding a broader perspective that can be very effective, but may take a little bit of training to understand how to work with them effectively. So in this video, I wanted to focus on uh, some ways that don't require uh, much of any training, but can be still really helpful to shift out of a stressful state and overall shift into a much happier, more successful way of being. Overall, we can think about our normal approach to stress as being a somewhat stress-based life, in terms of when problems or issues come up that we feel like we have to deal with really quickly or we don't know how to deal with. It's very common to have this reflexive habit of tensing up into this stress pattern where, whether we're talking about just how our mind reacts or how our body or energy, all parts of ourselves can end up shrinking down into this clamped down kind of state where we just feel overwhelmed by things and can't deal with the situation effectively. So when we're dealing with some kind of challenge, there's always some kind of antidote that we can apply, just as if we were trying to deal with some kind of poison out in the world, we could apply an antidote. So when we're talking about this contractive state of stress or feeling overwhelmed, because it has this real effect of clamping down and making us contract into a tight ball, the antidote is to find things that help us return to a more open and expansive state. There are a number of emotions that we could overall think of as being expansive in nature. There are things like love, gratitude, joy, happiness, compassion. But some of these emotions are easier to connect with when we're in the midst of feeling really stressed out than others. In particular, things like joy and happiness and compassion can be relatively difficult to connect with when we're currently feeling really stressed out. So in this video, we wanted to focus on emotions of love and gratitude because with a tiny bit of practice, we can learn how to spontaneously generate them no matter what state we're in, no matter how stressful the situation might be. So let's first talk about love. We all have an idea about what love is and who we might feel love for and under what circumstances we might feel that love. For example, we probably feel love for our parents, our loved ones, or significant other, children if we have them, our very close friends, our pets. There are a number of people that we would typically feel love for at some degree or another. Hopefully, we also feel love for ourselves, but that can be challenging, as we'll talk about here. But, the goal is to first identify some person, whether it's someone else, ourselves, a pet, anything, anyone that we feel a very, very deep level of love for. That's the first place to start when we go about trying to generate this feeling of love. So, when we think about these people that we feel a lot of love for, we have to ask ourselves whether this love is conditional or unconditional. Unconditional love, of course, is when we feel love for someone no matter what the situation is, no matter what they might have done, even if someone has messed up in some way or has hurt us to some degree or another, we would feel that we still love them no matter what's happening. And the goal here is to really feel that unconditional love in a deep personal level, not just an intellectual level, like, oh yeah, I love my parents. Oh yeah, I love my pet, but just to really, really very, very deeply feel that in our hearts is the ideal place to feel it instead of just as an intellectual thought. And once we feel that unconditional love for someone, then the goal is to broaden it out as far as we're willing to take it. So, for example, if we feel unconditional love for our parents, for example, then we would try to broaden that feeling out to more and more and more people. We might extend that out to more members of our family, uh, extend it to ourselves if we can, extend it to more distant family members that we don't normally feel that spontaneous degree of deep love for. We can try to expand it to strangers, other just random people that we see on the street. And if we want to, we can expand it further to people that we might dislike or have a strong degree of aversion to, whether that's political figures or people from history who've done really, really awful things. We don't have to expand this unconditional love any farther than we're willing to. The goal is to expand it as far as we can go while still really, really feeling that unconditional love on the inside. And this can be a really powerful practice, especially when we apply it to ourselves, because it's very easy for us to feel critical of ourselves if we feel that we didn't address something as well as we could have, or we feel like we messed up, or we're not being quote unquote perfect about something. It's easy to beat ourselves up to some degree or another. So the more unconditional love for ourselves we can feel, that already uh, can go a long way towards feeling less stressful about a situation because we're really doing the best we can. Another way that we can apply love in these stressful situations is feeling like, let's say, whoever we feel unconditional love for, if it's our brother or sister or our children, whoever, if they messed up in some way, or if they didn't handle a situation as ideally as possible, we would feel like that's okay. We love them no matter what. You know, there's no reason for them to feel so critical about themselves if they didn't handle it perfectly. And then use that same feeling uh, towards ourselves, towards anyone we feel like we're not able to extend love to. And through this combination of practices around generating love, we can expand our feeling of love from something that's very small and only limited to certain circumstances when we would really feel that at a deep personal level, so that instead of this tiny little spotlight of love we're willing to dole out in tiny doses in one particular situation, instead it's this large ball or sphere of love, and we can grow that sphere larger and larger and larger until it has no boundaries whatsoever if we can go that far. And we're just this immense ball of love. And from that perspective, however large we're able to grow that sphere of love, when we're centered within that ball of love, stress really goes away, because being in that state of complete love, unconditional love, is really incompatible with that tight contractive feeling of stress or feeling overwhelmed. So that's one reason why love can be such an effective way of dealing with stress. And I'll just mention that there are various practices that across the world throughout history have been used to generate these very, very strong feelings of love. Uh, for example, in Christianity, Jesus talked a lot about love. In the Sufi practices of what you could call mystical Islam, it's very deeply focused on love, as in the poetry of Rumi, Hafez, and others. From Hinduism and yoga, there's a practice of what's called Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti, which is focused on generating feelings of devotion and love. And these can be really transformative practices, even for people who don't have any kind of religious or spiritual interests. I hope what I've said overall about love can at least help people be curious about how generating feelings of love can be a powerful antidote to stress. The other emotion that I wanted to focus on here as an antidote to stress is gratitude, because, having more tools is always better than less. And, maybe sometimes love might not be working for us as something we can really feel when we're deeply in a stressful situation. So gratitude can be a very powerful tool as well, or we can combine love and gratitude together. So just to say a little more about gratitude, just as with love, there are various cases where we might spontaneously feel gratitude, like if someone has done something really special or kind for us, or has given us something that we value deeply. Or, even if someone does something very small, like smiling randomly to us at the gas station or grocery store, or if a neighbor randomly brings over a flower for us, whatever nice things people do for us, we may spontaneously feel gratitude. But even if someone isn't currently doing something for us, we can still generate those feelings of gratitude, which can shift us out of that contractive state of stress into that expansive state of openness. So when we're trying to generate gratitude, some things we can do would include, just trying to think of things in our life that we're grateful for. We can think about really large scale things that we don't normally appreciate. Like, for example, if our country is not currently a war zone, we can be grateful that we're not living in a war zone. If we have a roof over our heads, we can be grateful that we have a home. Whatever family members we can be grateful that we have family. Same thing for friends or pets. If we have a job or going to school, we can be grateful for the opportunity to earn money or to gain education. Whatever skills we have, whatever we're really, really good at in life, or even if we're only a little bit good at it, we can still be extremely grateful for those talents we have, or things we want to work on, or just the chance to try to live our life, just being a human being and having the chance to think about important things, do things for other people, make a contribution in whatever way we're able to. These are all things that we can be deeply grateful for, even if we don't usually think about them on a regular basis. So if we're feeling really stressed out or overwhelmed, just thinking about something that we're grateful for can be the start. But then the next step is to really deeply feel that on a personal, experiential level. Same thing as we did with love. So it's not just a rational process of thinking, yeah, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head, because we're likely to just feel, so what? at that point. But if we really feel, oh, I'm so glad that I have a roof over my head. Oh, so many people don't have the fortune of having a home or family or loved ones or pets. Feeling that gratitude in our heart can be a very powerful thing. And then again, same thing as we did with love, taking that small concentrated feeling of gratitude and growing that larger and larger feeling. I have so much to be grateful for. I'm just surrounded by gratitude. I'm living within gratitude. The larger we can grow that ball or sphere of gratitude, and we can mix together love and gratitude in that same overall ball, and then we can grow it, especially if it's larger than our entire body, as large as the room we're in, large as our state, our country, our world, the whole universe. We can grow love and gratitude as large as we can go, or as large as we want to go. And when we're within that ball of love and gratitude, stress can't touch us. And, if we stay in that state for a while and then thoughts and stress start to creep in again, that's okay. Whenever we're ready, we can return to tackling whatever challenge we're faced with, but, being more grounded in love and gratitude can be a very powerful way of shifting out of that state of stress. So I talked earlier about the stress-based approach to life. So if we don't want to be living in these high amounts of stress all the time, we don't have to. We can decide right here, right now, today, I'm going to shift out of that stress-based approach to life, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to live a life that's centered on love and gratitude. That doesn't mean we'll always be able to live from that perspective, but anytime we notice ourselves shifting back into stress, we can remind ourselves, no, I'm living a love-based and gratitude-based life. And we got to remind ourselves about that over and over again, but that's part of the work of life. And before I wrap this up here, I just wanted to mention there are so many benefits to shifting out of a stress-based life into this more open, expansive approach to life. And of course, there are so many health benefits because we know there's a lot of negative consequences to having stress coursing through our body and our minds so much of the time. There are all these stress chemicals like cortisol that studies show have all kinds of negative health effects. And, we can just feel for ourselves what the difference is between staying in a place of stress versus living from the perspective of love and gratitude. We know how different it feels, so we owe it to ourselves to try to live in a different way than we have before. So those are a few thoughts about how we can shift from a stress-based life into one that's based on love and gratitude. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, please let me know. Peace, love, and blessings.